last-minute shakeup at 5:30 a.m., laundry situation not good. And when your focus is on helping your clients, it's easy to forget about yourself. But NASM knows trainers.
Morning, Ryan. It's okay.
And staying in front of the day isn't always as
Thanks,
simple
Ryan.
as 1,
What's
2,
up?
3. So when the unexpected has you pressing pause,
What's the latest on creatine?
I'm going to get back to you on that.
let NASM 1 help you press play. Visit NASM.org to sign up for a membership today.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the Master Instructor Roundtable. I'm Marty Miller here with dear friend, co-host Wendy Batts, and we are live launching off the new year in 2025. Wendy, how was your New Year's, and what are you looking forward to, accomplishing maybe this year?
Oh, wow. That's a loaded question. Well, first of all, Happy New Year to you and the producer and everyone at NASM, and then obviously everyone that's listening. Goodness, I have quite a list, Marty. So there's a lot of personal things I have that I want to achieve, both on the education side, professional side, obviously financial side. So I have a list. How about that?
You are a list maker, I am sure of that.
I have a bunch of sticky notes everywhere. You know me.
As am I, and I'm sure many of our listeners are starting the year with those goals. And, Wendy, simply we could put it that we're going to continue to have the goal of putting out good content and hopefully elevating everybody's career.
Oh, yeah, totally. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah, you didn't take it, so I had to,
You did. I'm sorry.
All right, I'll land the plane. It's all good.
There you go. Well, Marty, I know this episode, we haven't done questions from the group in quite a while. And it was mainly because there have been so many great answers on the Facebook page from the NASM family. So not even us going in and piping in what we think, but just as a community, I think some of the answers that I saw were fabulous. And I don't get in as often as I used to, just because of other obligations. However, these were some of the questions that we pulled that didn't have a lot of answers. And I still think there's some confusion out there. So I know we're going to dive deep into some of that as we move forward.
Yeah, no, this is always a good topic that we bring in, frequently, because that's why we're here, right? Is to get people's questions answered, let them know how to, solve some of these things that are hanging out there, So if you weren't aware that we had an NASM certified personal trainer page, well, now you know. And get out there, take a look at it, get involved. It's a great way to network and also communicate with your peers. And the goal of that page is to bring people together, bring a community together. And it could be either to search out answers and network. I've seen both. And, it's great because when there are live events, it's like, hey, it seems like I've known you forever. So this is one of the other reasons behind this page. And then we go in there and we sift through and look for some of those most popular questions. And that's what we're going to do today.
Well, yes. And a lot of you guys that I saw were new to the page. So welcome to the page. And that is what this is all about. It is really about making sure that you guys feel comfortable. I know we're not going out doing a lot of workshops right now. However, if there are certain questions and you don't feel like putting it on the NASM Facebook page, Marty and I always finish each podcast with our contact information. So we'll be sure to share that with you, and you are welcome to email us privately, and we will do our best to either put it on the podcast or see if we can get the answer that you're looking for as well.
Well said.
So Marty, when we're looking at the goal, so if we look at, like you said, kind of what's the whole purpose of this, it is really about bringing people together. We really, like you said, we want to grow each one of you as professionally as possible. We know that some of you guys are coming in from a completely different profession, and you've decided that you really want to get more involved in health and wellness and fitness, and you're diving into the NASM content. And there's a lot of different information that's in there. Sometimes it can be a little confusing, especially if you're new to the model. However, if you spend some time and you really focus on what it's saying, it's not a rigid model. It's something that you can use with each and every client. We will go into that obviously more and more. However, just know that when you're thinking about this CPT page, that's where you can get some great answers. And a lot of those professionals, Marty, have been in there just as long as you and I have. So it's actually really great to see.
Yeah, it's you'll see here, how big the page is. Last time I think I checked, we're over 280,000 followers on Instagram. I think the Facebook page itself has 13,000 professionals, that are interacting. So our social media presence continues to grow. And here's my thought: if we're going to spend time on social media, spend a portion of that digging in to good content, right? And that's what NASM puts out there. Is it's in those small snippets. It's in the Instagrammable type of stuff, or quick questions on our Facebook page. So if you're going to spend some time, at least spend some time very targeted with what's going to help you advance your career, which is all of NASM's content.
And per your feedback, that's one of the reasons. I don't know if you guys have been on or a part of the NASM Fitness Instagram page, but they are starting to do more and more videos. They do partner with some of our partners who also, the partners will put out videos, and we'll share that just so therefore you guys have other people. It's not just always us that are showing different videos, but I know that they're trying to put together different types of quick things that you can do on the road, different exercises that maybe you haven't thought about, and then reviewing obviously some of the most basic things, because if you don't have the foundational movement patterns, or maybe you didn't know something about a particular movement pattern, we want to make sure we hit those up too. So if there is like something specific that you want to see, that's another good way to contact Marty and I, because we know a lot of people, so we can try to get the information out there.
Love it. So when do you want to take question 1 here?
Sure. So this question says, I have a question for you regarding 2 proprioceptive and balance exercises for stabilizing the kneecap and hip pelvic complex muscles. When performing a single leg hold on foam for 60 seconds and a single leg balance with reach, should the knee on the standing leg be bent or straight? I have read that it's best to keep a slight bend in the knee because this allows the muscles, quads, hamstrings, and glutes to stay active, which improves balance, protects the knee joint, and mimics natural movement better than a straight leg. If this is correct, if this is the correct approach, do you think there are any instances where a straight leg would be more beneficial?
Excellent. When you want me to go first here and see if there's anything you want to add? So they're both correct. So let's say I'm taking someone who's very limited in their balance, brand new, a straight leg, you're not going to cause any stress at the knee joint. We stand, like I have a stand-up desk. I'm standing with my legs straight all day. So, that's in a heavy loaded position. If we're doing certain lower body exercises or maybe even plyometrics, you have to be careful with that. So if someone has very limited balance, they may have to stand on a straight leg because it takes less muscle, right, in the hip, in lumbopelvic hip complex to keep their balance. And now they still maybe have a lot of instability in their foot and ankle, so that could still be a limiting factor. But I would start with somebody with a straight leg, make sure that they can maintain their good posture on that single leg and their balance. And then I can decide to start to bend the knee to whatever range of motion I feel appropriate, understanding now that there's going to be more muscular requirement, especially in and around the pelvis. And if those muscles aren't firing correctly, and there's even just a little bit of sway, that's going to create more instability at the foot and ankle too. So neither is wrong. It's just like a lot of things, we have to meet the person where they're at, knowing the micro progressions or regressions.
100%. And I will say, my first job that many of you guys have heard us talk about was working in a rehab facility. And we would start people either post injury. So if someone had a bad injury and we were trying to bring them back, and or they were post rehab in general, we would have them start with a straight leg. And that's mainly just because we were really trying to do what we call more of like passive support. So when we're looking at that, we were focusing on enhancing like the ligaments and the tendons and working on stability of the actual joint. And then trying to, because some people, like you said, Marty, they don't have the ability to really activate and control all these muscles, such as the quads, the hamstrings, the glute medius, all the muscles that you really want to make sure that we're activating and that are properly stabilizing the hips. So to your point, yes. And like you just said, where are they starting from? What's the end goal and what can they control? Because we're always looking at proper alignment. So if their arches are falling and you've got their knee bent and they're going into a lot of pronation, you see knee valgus, that is not good information in. So therefore, you're not going to get good information out. We're training the body to do something incorrectly. So then you want to reduce that knee bend until maybe they are just standing straight. Now, I'm not saying lock the knee And I think, Marty, when people say that, you're like not stressing the joint and putting a lot of strain on it and stress on it. That's not what we're talking about. There's a difference between standing, like you said, you're standing all the time. Hopefully you're not stressing your joints when you're standing, right? So that's an activity of daily living. So it's not wrong. It's just, what are you trying to challenge and what can they control?
Love it. All right. Well, I think we got that one. So we'll start here with question number 2. So I'll read this one and then we'll see who wants to take it. How do you all stay organized with the client workouts? Do you use an app? If so, which one? Write out plans each session, keep paper or digital files of workouts or progress. I'm getting busy and I've been writing or typing out session workouts, but it's getting messy, and grateful for any suggestions. Wendy, it's been a while since I've trained clients, so I'll give a short answer here and I'll turn it over to you. So because my facility that I trained at was unpredictable, I didn't always have the ability to say, I'm going to go from here to here to here to here. Members could take over an area or equipment I would have to adjust. So I kind of used like a soap note type of version of notes. What phase of training am I in? What movement patterns am I at? And now if a suspension trainer was taken, I would know what my alternatives were, and I would just make notes so I could keep a flow. But I was not able to write out very detailed workouts all the time. If I wrote them out, I'd have to have little notes on the side because the facility that I was in was not predictable enough to know that I could write a workout the night before and follow it all the way through. So for me, if I'm working on hinges, I should have 6, 8, 10 different versions. If I'm working on squats, if I'm working on fill in the blank, I should have the ability to adjust, and I would just make notes. So that way in my file, I would understand where the progress was going. But it always started with the phase of training I was in. And then I would, of course, count for the volume of training.
Well, I'm a little bit different. I use a lot, and I still do train clients. I work with a lot of different people, and I work with some people face-to-face. I work with a lot of people remotely, especially when they're in season. So there are a lot of different ways that I go about trying to keep myself organized. So I'm a huge advocate for the NASM app, so the Edge app. And I do that because I know that I can design a corrective exercise program, something that they can do, active recovery. It's in their app. They have access to it. And then I know exactly what they're doing. And if I need, when I have conversations, go in and change something, I can easily do that. I can copy a program and make some corrections. So therefore, I always know what they've done and then where we are. And then if I need to take that one off or reactivate a particular workout, I can. Now, I'm a huge advocate for that because everyone has their phone. So that's number one. Now, number two, when I do a lot of face-to-face, I keep track of everything that they did. So to Marty's point, when they're in the gym, I know exactly what they're doing. I have a program pretty much set up. I do have it digital, so I put it in my notes and my phone. And so when they come in, I glance at it. I don't look at my phone anymore because I know exactly what they're doing. And then as soon as their workout is over, I will make some changes to that. And then I email that to them immediately. So they have a copy of it. And then I take those notes and I drop it into a folder where, again, I can keep it on there. The reason I do that is because oftentimes, and this depends on your client, oftentimes I may get some information or a call from a strength and conditioning coach. Well, how did you get him to do this? Like, what did he do in the off season? And I can just send him that and there's no questions asked. Now, again, I think it's also important to think about if you write it out or you have it to where it's digitized and you have a copy of it, when you go in, like when you first go through and start working with a brand new client, you're going to go through usually phase one because most people have compensations. Well, then it makes phase two way easier because you can pull up exactly what you did in phase one, add a strength on the resistance side in front of it, and then just change the core balance and reactive or plyo exercises above it. And you easily have a phase two workout that took you no time to design because they already know how to do the stabilization. That's the part two of the superset. And so you're just making it a lot easier. Sometimes that's also important because if they get hurt, they're going to come back and say, what did you do with them? And you have to have record of that. You are responsible. If somebody gets hurt in the gym doing a program that you're doing, you have to be able to say, this is what they've been doing prior. This is what they did that day. And this is the reasons why. So liability reasons, it's always good to keep track of it as well. But to your point, Marty, if you don't have time to do it beforehand, and him and I can riff and do something very quickly, easily do that. But then also document when you're done, whether it's on your phone, whether it's on a piece of paper or whatever. I do all the above. So app, always super easy, something they can do on their own. I usually don't keep paper. I keep everything done on my phone and then make it into a folder. But I think it's very important that you have each and every workout, because they paid for it. If they want a copy of it, you can easily send that too.
No, I love it. I understand. And again, it's been years since I had to be in that environment, and the apps have come a long way, but just having the ability to take notes when you need to be flexible.
Always. So Marty, where can I get some NASM merchandise?
Well, if you go to nasm.org, log in, right? So that way you're in there, and then you can go to the bottom of the page and look for pro discounts. And we've done a lot of different Master Instructor Roundtables with a lot of our partners, right? And I would say that the discounts are very generous, ranging from 15% all the way up. I think some are even 40%. So I would definitely take advantage of that. And Wendy, I know you did some shopping for your clients at Christmas.
I did. And we have recently partnered with Free Spirit. So if you actually want something with the NASM logo, you can go into click on the Free Spirit. And as you can see, as an NASM certified professional, you get 30% off. So just make sure that you go into the pro discount and get that if you're looking for something that says NASM on it. I ordered a couple shirts because that's what I do. Always wearing the brand. And it's different. I like it. There's a lot of more workout type clothes in there. So yeah. So if you haven't checked out Free Spirit, then go ahead and log in there and see what you think. See if there's anything you like, and then go for it.
Love it. I'm going to go check it out. I need to do a little shopping right now.
Well, there you go. So Marty, before we get started on question number 4, I just want to say that this episode of the Master Instructor Roundtable is brought to you by NASM One, the membership for trainers and coaches. Members enjoy unlimited access to hundreds of career resources. Get the Edge app to schedule and program clients, enjoy half off all certifications and specializations, access free CEUs, and more. All of this for just $35 a month. Go to nasm.org/membership to learn more about NASM One. So Marty, question 4. This is all about the seniors. I know you work or had worked a lot with country clubs. So you have had all different populations. So I think this is a great question for you.
Yeah. So the question reads here, wondering what y'all think the best techniques/exercises are to help with agility and balance for seniors. Here's the crazy thing. It's going to be the same exercises you're going to use with your elite athletes for the most part. There may not be the full jumping and leaving the ground, but a speed ladder, stepping over cones, right? I've said this countless different times. Don't kind of confuse, someone's abilities, right, with the actual physical structures in the body, and the capacities is really what I'm looking for, right? So every senior still has the ability to train stabilization, strength, endurance, muscular hypertrophy, right? Muscular development, hypertrophy, even some level of max strength, and definitely some level of power. But a workout for a senior is going to look different in the intensity of it. But that doesn't mean they're still not going to do speed ladder drills. It still doesn't mean they're not going to do some lateral steps over cones or a small hurdle. It's just you got to work within their boundaries of what they're capable of controlling. No different than what we talked about with the balance, right? Some people need to stay with their legs straight. Some people eventually can be more advanced. Some people may have to stay consistently with their legs straight. Doesn't matter, but you have to train it. And for those of you watching, we have good pictures of more of a senior athlete, I'll call them, doing a speed ladder and a lateral sidestep over a hurdle. Wendy, you and I have done this before. Battling ropes is a great way to train power for seniors. So I know this is more on the balance and agility, but it shows you if you get creative and understand lower impact training, you can still do agility work and more advanced balance. You just have to be able to break an exercise down to the most basic level. And if that's where they are, that's where they are. But what's the next micro step for them, right? So that's the key thing, is don't let somebody limit themselves by a number. Go back to the assessment, go through the phases of training, and just break down all these exercises and keep them within what they can control. But you'd be surprised how much more advanced, or quote unquote athletic they can be when you really understand the model.
Well, and I think it's important too. Remember how many times Marty and I have said this: age is just a number, right? I know people that are in their 60s and 70s that are running marathons at a time I would love to have. And I'm not there yet in the age department. So we don't want it when we think about our aging population. That's why the assessments are so important. Most people think seniors are on their way out. They're so fragile. They're not able to do anything. And that's not the case, luckily, anymore. I know when I was growing up, people that were in their 70s, Marty, they didn't move like some of the people we're seeing now. We've learned so much more. But to your point, I mean, as we do age, we start to lose our balance. We've read all the statistics on falls. So it's very important that, you know, even if they're standing up, I have clients brush their teeth and they have to stand, you know, they're supposed to brush their teeth for 2 minutes. So 1 minute on one side and another minute on another side. I have them, you know, try to challenge themselves by shifting their weight side to side when they're doing dishes or doing something like that. So they're just doing little things at home. But then when you do get them in the gym, one of the unfortunate reasons why people trip and fall is they don't pick up their feet. So as we get older, sometimes we don't utilize the steps like we're normally doing. And so I think it's important to keep our seniors from shuffling. And we know that more injuries occur when you're decelerating in the transverse plane. So working in all three planes of motion. Plus, Marty, how many times have you worked with seniors and you put the speed ladder out and they have to remember the pattern. So it's really good for the cognitive side, but they have fun. They're doing things that they used to do when they were kids. You're just maybe changing it up a little bit. And so it also adds a different type of mentality where you start to see some people giggle when before they wouldn't, because they're like, oh, this is actually fun. It's like, okay, when you're working with your grandkids, this is stuff you can do. And so I think it's one of those things that the more you can get them doing different things, lifting their feet up, moving side to side, moving while they're turning, it's going to lead to better activities of daily living, reduces the chances of falling, and you start to strengthen muscles, which we know also we want to try to decrease any kind of sarcopenia that we can. It's definitely a win-win, but I don't think there's a best technique or exercise. I think anything that you can get them doing that challenges what we just talked about is super important.
No, I agree totally. Well said, Wendy.
All right. Question number 5. So if you guys are just tuning in, we are live today on the Master Instructor Roundtable with Wendy Batts and Marty Miller. We are talking about questions from the group. We got these specifically from the Facebook page. And if you have other questions, as Marty and I go through some of these questions that we pulled out, please be sure to put those in the comments so we can get them answered before we finish today. But Marty, I'm going to read this question because I found this one to be interesting because I don't see it very often. And I mean, I have seen it before, but I'd be interested to see your take on this. But I came across a resource that talked about femur and torso length and impacting squatting form. I'm not finding much in this group about it. Might not be searching the right thing, but I've never heard this before. Can you all share your expertise on this?
All right. So first and foremost, we have to remember scope of practice. So I'm going to dive into my athletic training a bit, come back to fitness. So when we look at femur length and torso, and then, you know, some people look at the femur versus the tibia. When you're looking at that, I'm going to say this in a blanket statement. The majority of us at birth are born with the right ratio. Now, could there be injuries that occur for some, right? I have a stepson who had a horrible motorcycle accident when he was 15, and they were worried about his growth plates on that side, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, there's always going to be certain anomalies that can happen. But when we look at the majority of people we're dealing with, when most people can't squat right, I promise you the bulk of them do not fall into, oh, my tibias are too long or my femur's too long, or no, you have muscular restriction that's creating biomechanical dysfunction. And the reason I know this to be true is Dr. Mike Clark, who brought NASM, the OPT model like you know it today, he spent a lot of times across all sports, but spent, I think, 18 years directly with the Phoenix Suns. He was dealing with the tallest humans on the planet, and he would improve their squats. But we also have to look at, are you loading the squat? Are we talking about a body weight squat? What's your, what is your ideal form? What are we talking about here? So what I generally like to say to people when somebody has a form and a squat that they don't feel comfortable with, well, first of all, they shouldn't be in a loaded position anyways, right? So when you look at that, most people find that they don't like to squat when they're loaded. Well, yeah, if you have any type of movement dysfunction and you're in a strength phase, you're going to put stress on your joints because you're not in ideal position. So we have to go back to what our assessment says. We have to go back to our corrective exercise strategies. We have to go back to stabilization endurance training, where this person should not be bothered by squatting because they're in an unloaded position, or they might actually have a stability ball behind their back to increase range of motion of the ankles while they work through. They may be using a suspension trainer. So all of a sudden their squat is like, oh, this feels better. Well, I didn't change the length of any of those bones. I didn't change the length of your femur in ratio to your torso and to the ratio of your tibia and fibula. I got you to move better. So Wendy, when I hear people say that, the first thing I do is usually elevate their heels a little bit, give them some core stability. And they're like, yeah, this feels great. Oh, I must be magic. I just changed. No. And they're like, well, wait, yeah, you're right. If I could squat like this with a bar, this would feel better, but I can't when you don't give me this crutch. So sometimes I'll use that crutch to rule something out, but I'll also use that crutch just to show them, well, look, if I could give you this aid permanently by fixing your body, why are we talking about how long your torso is to your femur, to your tibia, etc.? Now, if I'm doing a great assessment, I'm following my protocols, and they're still not squatting perfectly, I have another thing I can do. I can refer out if there's pain or discomfort. Or if I have an athlete that has zero injury, zero pain, but anytime I squat them and they have any type of, I'll just say an excessive forward lean, well, guess what? Okay, that's my athlete. That's what I have to deal with. Maybe I only do step ups with them. Maybe I only do modified squats with them. I squat them within a range of motion that they can keep before there is a range of any type of movement compensation. So either way, I don't really care, right? But I'm going to say it in a general sense. More people are going to use that as an excuse or a crutch. One, because they either don't know and they've heard it, or number two, they don't want to do all the corrective exercise and stabilization work it takes to have less of those issues, and or the person they've worked with may not be coming from the understanding we do from human movement.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I think, to your point, Marty, when people are talking about the femur and the torso and there's a difference, well, is it impacting the squat? Well, in what way? I mean, if someone does have this anomaly where there is like a ratio difference, you may notice that someone does have that excessive forward lean. That's what you're going to see for the compensation. But if you did like range of motion testing and they have 20 degrees of dorsiflexion, all their joints are in perfect range of motion, meaning they've got good knee extension and flexion. They have really good hip extension. Then where are we? If they're too much of a forward squat and I load them, then I'm going to be using the low back muscles. I mean, I'm not actually loading the glutes and the quads like I'm supposed to be. Right. So I'm just going to maybe increase stress to an area that I know is easily impacted. You always hear people talk about discomfort in the lower back. I don't want to increase that. So to your point, Marty, yes, you need to be smart in your programming. You need to be smart and making sure that when you're loading someone, we always talk about trying to have ideal, like we're looking for parallel lines. And Marty, we hear this all the time. This was actually written in our very first textbook. And for some reason, I don't ever see it in our textbooks anymore. And it's not because it's no longer true. I think it just got so scientific that people wanted us to make it easier to understand. But guys, we're making sure that the torso and the tibia. So basically we're looking at the lower leg and the back. When you go into a squat, we want those lines to be parallel. And we do everything in our power to maintain that, because if we have parallel lines during a squat, then what that means is we have equal weight distribution between the ankle, the knee, and the hip. And if I have three joints that can carry the load versus just putting everything in my lower back or putting everything in certain, like on my knees or something like that, why wouldn't I want to spread the love? Because I can lift more. And that's what people want to do. They want to lift heavy. Well, then lift heavy, make sure your joints are in a good position. And therefore you're activating neuromuscular efficiency, right muscles firing at the right time in the right plane of motion. So it all just comes back to biomechanics.
Yep. Wendy, you're up. Question 6.
All right, question number 6. So I think this is the last question that we have in the group that we pulled this time, but I'm a professional soccer player and I passed my NASM exam a few weeks ago. So first of all, congratulations. I've been struggling to get clients and I want to know if I can get a little help on how to go about that. I see a lot of advertisements on social media and the figures seem crazy and I don't trust them.
Yeah, I can jump in here. So I'm going to make an assumption that you're working in a facility, right? Online training is a whole nother type of thing. You do have to have a social media presence. You have to know how to, acquire clients through a different method than what I'm going to say here right now. But for me, training for, I think it was 18 years total when I didn't work in professional sports, I had more clients than I needed or wanted because you know what I did? I used the model. I'd walk around and build rapport with people, and I'd walk around and show them a different form or technique based on movement compensations, right? I didn't say, oh my God, I can't believe you're arching your low back, or your head's jutting forward. I would use that as, hey, let me show you how to get even more out of that exercise. And now all of a sudden they're firing a muscle because you've got them in proper form. Like, oh my God, that's amazing. Or you give away free assessments. If you're in this industry, guess what? You're going to put a little work in ahead of time before you get paid. If you're in a facility, you got to get that client, you got to build rapport. But the time starts to switch from where you're training 20% of your time and you're generating leads 80% of the time. Then eventually you're training 80 to 90% of the time and you're getting leads 10 to 20% of the time, because as you're training, you're being such a great professional. Everybody else is seeing you if it's in a normal facility, and you're starting to get referrals. So just except for the first couple of weeks, I'm going to give away my services in different ways. And I promise you, if you use the course that you took and passed, congratulations, to your advantage, talk about tempos, talk about phases of training, give away assessments. People are going to be like, I'd never heard of that before. That makes so much sense. Oh my God, that exercise, that superset felt so much better than anything I've ever done. That, to me, if you're in a facility, is the best way to get clients.
Well, and I'm gonna step in here and say, first of all, the very first thing that you said, your very first statement, is how you can actually market yourself and build a business. If you are a professional soccer player, you have so many parents of younger athletes that want their child to be the next professional soccer player. And so if you think about how you were to get yourself up to the professional level, you took a bunch of courses or a bunch of camps. You put on a bunch of different, or went to a bunch of different things that people were putting out for you to do on breaks, on different, whether it's a winter break or spring break or whatever. You can get a lot of these parents to see how good you are as a soccer player. But now that you have your NASM CPT and you have a model to get their kid to the next level, and they're more explosive, they're moving properly. Soccer, we know, especially in female, ACL injuries are on the rise, especially in our youth athletes. So you have a lot of really good ways. Those parents will pay whatever it costs to make sure that their child, make sure my child stays healthy. I want the best person working with my son at all times. And it may not be me, but I want to see somebody that's going to help him get better. But I also want to make sure that he's learning good mechanics. Mm-hmm. So I think, you can go to a park and you can say, hey, you're going to put on this, and this over a weekend at this, whatever you want to charge for that. And then you start saying, hey, I noticed that Sally was doing this and I'm seeing a lot of her knees going in. And I know there's certain exercises that maybe she needs to bring to the forefront before she gets out there. Maybe do this as her warm up. And then you start to build rapport with the parents. Now, again, you have to think, what is your niche? Is it soccer? Do you not want to do soccer? If you don't want to do soccer, then totally scratch that. But you also have to think, do you want to work with adults? Do you want to work with youth athletes? What is it that you want to do? But I think having that soccer advantage you're kind of actually ahead of some of the others that are new to the field because you have that advantage.
That's a great point, Wendy. Yeah, I went right to the facility. So I'm glad you came with that angle, because why not use what you got?
Just saying. So important reminders. What do the assessments show? And if you don't know what the assessments show, it means you're not doing your assessments. And if you're not assessing, you're guessing. So Marty and I have talked about this, and we will continue to talk about this until they actually tell us that we are no longer allowed to do these podcasts, that your assessment guys really are the answers. If you can do an assessment with each and every individual that you're working with, you're going to be able to successfully get them moving better, feeling better, performing better. And then at that point, they're also going to be able to hit goals. It's very important, though, that as you go through and you teach them basic movement patterns, and then you start adding more weight and challenging their range of motion, challenging how much they're lifting, and then challenging the plane of motion, that you also reassess every 4 to 6 weeks to make sure that whatever the goal is, that you're getting that a step towards that goal. And if they had all of these compensations, you reassess them and they're still a hot mess, then you need to take 2 steps back and talk about, all right, what are they doing on their own? Or what are you doing as the professional on the programming side that maybe isn't allowing them to hit that goal? If you follow the acute variables, and remember, all that means is it's a clumped word for having the right sets, the right repetitions, the right tempo, and the right intensity. If you can maintain that based on the actual phase of training, it really will make it hard. Phase 1 and phase 2, in my personal opinion, are one of the hardest phases to do, because if there's compensations, we're working to get out of them in phase 1. Phase 2, we're still focusing on that instability, but now we're adding strength to it. So it's definitely a lot more load that we're having to work with. It's a lot more repetitions. And it doesn't have to be fancy. It's not, let me get online and see what cool exercise of the day is there for this morning. It's really about, okay, what does the assessment show? What muscles are underactive, meaning what's allowing that compensation? And then how can I fire that muscle to make sure it's working better? And then doing different exercises at a slow tempo to start. It's not hard to think about exercises that are that way, and they don't have to be fancy, but you'll be so surprised at how many people can't do it because that muscle isn't activating the way or working the way that it's meant to be working. That's why they have that compensation. So sometimes it's hard to hear because people are thinking, well, they're going to get so bored. Well, if they're bored, then you're not doing something right. It's really, how are you saying, okay, we're going to do bicep curls this way this time. And then they come in and do bicep curls that way. Bicep curls are just the gun show. It doesn't really help anything that's like from the foot and ankle complex up, but everybody likes to have sexy arms. So you know what? Do something for the arms. Just don't do the same thing. Switch it up. But guess what? They're still going to do 12 to 15 reps. They're still going to go down really slow. And then they're going to come up. They're going to show me the pump. And then they're going to slowly go back down. That's awesome. Do it again. Perfect. Do it again. If I had someone telling me it all the time, I would be doing that all the time. And you know what? They're having fun. I'm not going to say we're going to go down really slow and you count. If so, you're going to put them to sleep. They don't want to come back. They're sore. So it's how you sell it, Marty.
Well said. There's the art and the science of training. You got to have both.
Got to have both.
So some key takeaways. We've talked about it. Are you aware of the NASM CPT Facebook page? Well, if you weren't, you are now. So we should see those numbers grow by the end of today. Are you following NASM's Instagram channel? I'm putting out more content. I've got some new stuff coming up on wrestling, grappling, and football, actually, and how that carries over to everyday life. So more stuff coming from everybody. Make sure you're using these resources. Shocking. We're going to tell you to stick to the model, which includes your assessments. And then finally, don't forget we're here. Ask questions and let us help you.
Absolutely. But if you do have questions, you can always email me at wendy.bats@nasm.org, or you can find me on Instagram at wendy.bats13.
And my information right here, dr.martymiller72, and then email marty.miller@nasm.org. So Wendy, thanks for digging through on this one and finding those great questions. Thanks for putting it together. And I loved your perspective on it, because sometimes there's a right and wrong in these things. And sometimes with this type of conversation, there's those different angles that we could take. So it was good to hear your perspective on these.
Absolutely. Always fun, Marty.
Awesome. Well, we got a great start to the year, so we're excited for a great 2025 with all of you. So thanks for joining us today. And as always, we can't wait to see you next week on the Master Instructor Roundtable.